You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What's up, everybody? This is KCSN Update, our daily Chiefs show and podcast here at KC Sports Network. Thanks for hanging out. I'm DJ Kissel. It's Wednesday, and Brett Coleman is actually en route to Phoenix. May be there by the time you're listening to this for covering Super Bowl 57 between the Chiefs and Eagles on Sunday. So we're actually going to be joined by Fran Duffy of the Philadelphia Eagles and PhiladelphiaEagles.com. I've long admired Fran's work and the content that he and his staff over there have put out over the years, whether it's podcast, NFL draft, breakdowns, X's and O's stuff. They really educate their fan base and engage Eagles fans with the content that they put together. So excited to chat with Fran, get his thoughts on the matchup, and obviously educate us a little bit on the Philadelphia Eagles as a team beyond just some of the basic storylines that we've all been talking about since we knew that these two teams were going to be the ones squaring off for Super Bowl 57. So excited to get Fran's thoughts as someone who's as connected to the Philadelphia Eagles as anybody out there who covers this team. But you know the deal. Before we bring Fran on, here's a quick word from our friends over at DraftKings. Are you ready for the biggest Sunday in sports? DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 57, has all the Super Bowl action you need. New customers can bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, all customers can get in on the Super Bowl 57 excitement with DraftKings Happy Hour Super Boost. Check out the DraftKings Sportsbook app every day between 5 and 8 p.m. Central Standard Time to see what prop bet will be boosted. Chiefs currently 1.5-point dogs to the Eagles on Sunday with an over-under of 51 points. But there are a lot of fun prop bets if that's your thing. Make sure you check out the KC Labs episode, their bonus episode from last week, posted on Monday morning on Super Bowl prop bets. There's a lot of good ones in there. Make sure to check that out. And download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code KCSN. Again, as new customers can bet $5 on Super Bowl 57 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code KCSN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, now let's welcome on Fran Duffy from PhiladelphiaEagles.com and Eagle Eye in the Sky and the journey to the draft. He's one of the guys that you need to be following if you love the NFL. Like I said off the top, one of the guys that I've always admired from afar, Fran, and all the work that you've done. So I appreciate you joining us and talk a little Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl this week.
Well, BJ, I appreciate the kind words, and the feeling is mutual for sure. You've done an outstanding job covering this team, and everybody out in KC is very lucky to have you covering not just this football team, but everything going out in your neck of the woods.
I don't know, Fran, how much you caught wind of how testy things got between the Chiefs and the Bengals and the fan bases, that it was a little heated.
Yep.
We had mayors talking trash. Like it was a mess. And then we get to the Eagles and it was like, I kind of like the Eagles. I got nothing to say. There's so much vitriol with the AFC title game. Now it's just like Andy Reid, the Kelsey brothers, all the ones, storylines everybody's been talking about. But even beyond that, like always liked the Eagles by the time that Doug Peterson, somebody I had a chance to spend some time around, and some other familiar faces that have gone back and forth. Just got nothing but love, nothing but respect, but I appreciate you joining us and getting into this a little bit. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of educate us on a team that you're around every day. You talk to the coaches, you talk to the players. If anybody listening hasn't followed your content, you really get into the X's and O's. And I was jealous of my time with the Chiefs. We couldn't do a lot of that type of content anyway. Not that I had the knowledge necessarily to do it the way that you do, but I love following it. And so I want to start with the Eagles offense. Know that Jalen Hurts, as far as from the outside, had the shoulder injury, banged up a little bit. We've talked about that, and then just how good the offensive line is. But when you look at this team and what you've seen from the moment they started at the beginning of the year to the squad that they have right now, what are some of the storylines and things that you've kind of followed throughout the season that are kind of leading into an intriguing thing for you to watch in this game on Sunday?
Sure. I mean, I think the big thing is going back to the springtime and understanding, okay, well, what did this team look like on the back end of 2021, where it was the engine of this offense and of this team was the run game, and Jalen Hurts was a huge part of that run game. But the organization did a great job this offseason, and that starts with general manager Howie Roseman of putting this team in a position where, hey, you know what? Let's go into 2022. Let's see if Jalen Hurts can be the guy, if he can take that next step as a passer. And if not, we do have that flexibility. We've got multiple first-round picks next year. We've got that ability, we'll have some cap dollars, some fluidity there to make a move for a quarterback, whether it's on the pro market or on the rookie market. And I think when you look at what they did in last offseason was, we're going to put Jalen in position to really prove us, to really make sure that we know for sure at the end of the season, this is going to work or it's not. You go out, you trade for A.J. Brown. You already had Devontae Smith, a top 10 pick who looked great as a rookie. You have Dallas Goedert, now the tight end one for the first time in his career. You've got the best offensive line in football, one of the best offensive lines in football. If everybody is healthy, this is a group that we feel good. Yeah, like this offense is great. Now let's see what Jalen looks like. And you get into week 1 against Detroit, and the run game is the catalyst. A.J. Brown has a huge day, and it's like, okay, feel really good. But, let's see if Jalen can continue to progress. And week 2 against the Minnesota Vikings, a team that had done a number on Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers in week 1. All right, let's this defense. It's Monday Night Football, prime time, under the lights. What is this team going to look like? And they played a lot of vanilla, soft zone coverage. They didn't blitz, but they said, you know what, Jalen Hurts, we're going to force you to read things out, and beat us as a passer. Tell you what, that's exactly what he did. He showed the ability to say, I'm going to go through my progressions. I'm going to find open receivers. We're going to attack downfield. Quez Watkins had a 53-yard touchdown on a deep ball. Devontae Smith heavily involved. A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, everybody chipped in as pass catchers in that game. And the run game was kind of an afterthought. It was like, wow. If the Eagles can do this, if Jalen Hurts can do this, this team could be really, really good because you've got the personnel to attack no matter which way you want to defend defensively. But if you can go into a game and say, okay, we can lean into the run game or we can lean into the pass game, well, this offense has the ability to be really, really dangerous. And that's honestly, that was the theme throughout the majority of this year. This team started, 10, 11, 12, and 0. And the big part of that every single week, depending on what the opposing team's strength was defensively, okay, you're good. You've got two good corners on the outside. We're going to hammer you inside with Dallas Goedert. We're going to run the ball. Oh, you've got a great run defense? All right, we're going to throw it all over the yard. We're going to pepper you on the perimeter. Whatever the strength was, we're going to stay away from that. Whatever the weakness is, we're going to attack that. And to have the personnel to be able to do that, and then also the quarterback, the point guard, to be able to call the shots and make the kind of evolution that he made, Jalen Hurts took huge strides as a passer this season. Even mid-season, you kind of saw things kind of change where, against the blitz, against pressure, everything was screen. And you're leading into the bye week 4, week 5, week 6, you kind of saw, okay, this is their answer against the blitz. That's not going to be quite sustainable. Teams are going to tee off on those receivers on the perimeter if that's going to be the answer. Well, that's what's starting to happen. You go into the bye week, you come back against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Tennessee Titans in back-to-back weeks. Those teams tried to heat Jalen Hurts up with the blitz. And what that then became was bombs away downfield. Hey, if you're going to send extra bodies at me, that means you don't have enough bodies in the secondary to guard both of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the perimeter. And then the average depth of target from that point on was like 10.0 against the blitz. It was something wild on the field where, we're going to go nuts and attack you vertically in the passing game. And so when you see the run game element, which is still present, and then the pass game, the ability to beat you at all 3 levels, that's what made this offense one of the best in the NFL whenever Jalen Hurts was healthy here this season.
I think that's one of the reasons why when I'm looking just on paper and we just kind of connect dots and storylines, like, okay, there's a weakness or there's something here. How can we make this make sense to what we could see transpire? And for me, it's the running game. It's the threat of Jalen Hurts running and how much stress that puts on the second level of the Chiefs defense, because from a pass coverage standpoint, that is, it's most teams' weaknesses, but that second level, it's Nick Bolton, very good against the run. It's been much better against the pass than he was a year ago. But if you're looking for an area that you could exploit, or what we've seen when the team has struggled defensively this year, it's been that intermediate passing across the middle, and how much of a successful run game early for the Eagles could really start to put some stress on those linebackers to not leave these huge windows open across the middle of the field. When you're looking at the Chiefs defense and some of the specific matchups going into this game, and you and I talked about it before, for me, it's the Chiefs defensive line, just like it was last week against the Bengals, but for a different reason. And that the Chiefs needed to be dominant against a banged up Bengals front, offensively on the offensive line side, because they were banged up front. You need Chris Jones, you need those guys to wreak havoc up there. When you're looking at this group, obviously you mentioned, and I'd say the same thing, best offensive line in football, even though that we saw Dickerson with the hyperextended elbow at the end of the NFC title game, and then Lane Johnson obviously playing through what he's playing through right now. What are the storylines and what are the matchups that you're really looking forward to that you think will be key from the Eagles' point of view going up against this Chiefs defense?
Well, you mentioned a couple, certainly the health of the offensive line, the health of Jalen Hurts, who dealt with a shoulder injury on the back end of the season. That will be a big thing. And he missed weeks 15 and 16, came back for week 17, or no, came back for week 18. I'm still getting used to the new schedule. Came back for week 18 against the New York Giants. It was a must-win game to secure the number 1 seed. And Jalen Hurts did that. Didn't look great in that week 18 game, but then came out in week 20, the divisional round against New York, and then an NFC title game against San Francisco. And honestly, both those games basically over by halftime. The defense was dominant. The offense was dominant. The Eagles won the line of scrimmage in both areas in that game. And I think when you look at this team going into this matchup, we could say the Eagles have not faced a team like the Chiefs. And I'm speaking now in terms of just overall roster construction. The Eagles have not faced a team like this. What are they going to look like when they have to go full bore? It's been a while since this team, with Jalen Hurts at quarterback, a healthy Jalen Hurts, has really had to put pedal to the metal for a full 60 minutes. It's been a minute. It's been a long time. And so I think that's going to be kind of the fun part and the exciting part about this game, is that this is a team of the Chiefs that can match the Eagles from an explosiveness standpoint. The 49ers, especially once Purdy went out, they could not do that. The New York Giants could not do that. The New Orleans Saints, all these teams on the back end of the schedule just struggled to really pressure the Eagles from an offensive standpoint, to say all right, well, if we don't score here on this drive, that's all right. We'll get another crack at it. The defense is going to force a 3 and out. The defense is going to get a strip sack. We're going to be okay. So I'm fascinated to see this offense go toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and this offense. And it's, to me, that's what makes this such a fun game. I usually don't like talking about it's this offense and this quarterback versus this offense and that quarterback, because they're never on the field together. But I think in this game, that battle, that chess match, is going to be really fun to follow.
All right, we're going to switch to the other side of the ball. We're talking with Fran Duffy from PhiladelphiaEagles.com. We're going to get his thoughts on the Eagles defense going up against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense right after this. Welcome back to KCSN Update. We're hanging out with Fran Duffy from PhiladelphiaEagles.com. He's educating us a little bit on the Eagles, as only people and only those who cover the team as close as Fran, and I'm sure a handful of the other beat writers are there at all the OTA practices. You're there in the spring. When you look at some of the Super Bowl media, there's all those people down there now. I always laugh because when I was working for the Chiefs and we were down there, Fran, we'd always look at all the beat writers and all of us that were there, when there's 6 media there. At least that's how it was in Kansas City during the OTAs. I don't know how it is in Philly. But would always be we can't ask questions during the biggest time of the year because there's so many media. I'm we were the ones who were here from the very beginning. But appreciate you, man, for joining us. I want to talk a little Eagles defense. We have spent a lot of time this week, at least on our network, and I know locally with the coverage, talking about the pass rush and all the dudes you have to get up front, not just the 4 starters, but the guys that you mix in that rotate in there. I know there's a lot more to your defense than just the front 4 and those guys getting after it. But can you kind of walk us through, same thing you did with the offense, just what was the kind of storylines coming into the season and how has it really progressed in a way? And has it been kind of what you expected when the season began?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the big storyline coming into the season were just some of the new faces. This was a new defensive scheme a year ago, just like it was on offense. Jonathan Gannon coming in as the defensive coordinator, and what was the scheme going to look like? How multiple were they going to be? That was a word you heard a lot, was multiplicity. And when from a front standpoint, there's a huge difference. And honestly, you can look at this from front to back as well. Last year, there was on the back end of this Eagles defense, you had instead of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, it was Anthony Harris. And instead of James Bradbury, it was Steven Nelson. And instead of Kaiser White, who's made a lot of big plays this year, it was Alex Singleton. Instead of Hassan Reddick, it was Jannard Avery, right? So you just start getting into, a lot of these names are a lot different. Instead of Hassan Ridgeway, it was Jordan Davis and Antonio Sue and Linval Joseph. And so when you get all these big names that come in, Brandon Graham was hurt for the majority of the season last year. He got hurt in week 2. He tore his Achilles. He's back on the lineup, right? So you start getting all these big names, and then you get the continuity. And you saw this in Kansas City, was that jump in year 1 to year 2 defensively is so important for those guys, especially on the back 7. And so, I would say, this team had 70 sacks this year, 3rd most all time. They were within striking distance of the record, even in week 17, not just the week 18 padding stats, within week 17, they had a chance at breaking the all-time record. And I think when you look at this group, you say, oh, well, that front is outstanding. And they are. It's a really talented group up front. The starters are great. The backups are outstanding. They come at you in waves, and there's a lot of different fronts where they'll come out in like an odd look where they're true nose tackle, where it's going to be Linval Joseph and Jordan Davis, and those guys kind of tag team inside there. Then you've got your even fronts where, all right, well, it's going to be a 4-down structure, and you're going to have Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, and they're going to get supplanted by Milton Williams and Ndamukong Suh. And Ndamukong Suh, a nice player to have coming off the bench, especially in crunch time situations, right? And Brandon Graham can kick inside. He plays in off the edge. They've just got all of these guys that can come in, and then you factor in the edge rush. And I think that especially in this game against the Chiefs, will be so important. You look at Hassan Reddick. He's had 19.5 sacks in 19 games as an Eagle, coming back here to play for his hometown team. He grew up just across the bridge in Camden, New Jersey. So him coming back, he has been a terror off the left side, the defensive left side, especially here in the postseason. He's had 3.5 sacks in 2 games. You look at Josh Sweat, his ability to win with both power and speed and technique. It makes him one of the toughest pass rushers to go up against. He's got the wingspan of a pterodactyl. He's got outstanding get off, and he can beat you in a lot of different ways as an offensive lineman. And so Orlando Brown Jr. going up against Sweat, I think is a huge matchup in this game. And so you start with that front, and you say, oh, well, 70 sacks. Like, a lot of it's attributed to the front. BJ, I'm telling you, like, it started, like, even week 3, they had, like, I think it was, like, 8 or 9 sacks against the Washington Commanders and Carson Wentz. And you go back and you watch a lot of those sacks, and you say, like, yeah, the front did a great job here. But look at the coverage on the back end. Look at James Bradbury jumping this route. He read the route perfectly. Look at the pass off here between like Avonte Maddox and Kaiser White, or Darius Slay and Marcus Epps, or CJ Gardner-Johnson and Avonte Maddox. Those guys doing an outstanding job in their zone defense of passing routes off and understanding who's going to overlap where and who's responsible for what. And those guys were all just like defenders on a string, really kind of preventing the quarterback from getting to his first and second and third read. And now the quarterback's holding onto the football. He's stepping up. Then he starts dropping his eyes because there's Hassan Reddick. There's Javon Hargrave. There's Josh Sweat. There's Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. You start coming at you in waves, and now things just snowballed for quarterbacks from there. It was like a stretch in the back half of the year where I think it was 7 games in a row they had at least 5 sacks, or 6 games in a row they had at least 5 sacks. It was the first team in NFL history to do that. And a lot of it was because, not just because of the front, guys winning fast and getting home, but it was, look at the coverage married up with the sack. And coaches always kind of point to that, but I just felt like that was apparent from the jump here this season, that the chemistry on the back end, the communication on the back end was just so strong. And you're going to need that here, obviously, in this game going up against Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce in particular, because those two guys have such a mind meld going in terms of being able to find the soft spots in zone coverage, both inside and outside of structure. And that's going to be one of the big storylines in this game.
Yeah, we saw, I mean, Chiefs fans don't like to talk about the Super Bowl from a few years ago, but we see what happens when you can get pressure with 4 and you have a linebacking core and just a group on the back end that plays really well together. That was the big thing with it was Coach Lou and the Bengals, their defensive coordinator, that those guys communicated and played so well together. They didn't make anything easy. And when you combine the amount of talent that you guys have up front, it leads to what's going to be a fascinating thing. And I don't have to tell anybody in Philadelphia that the thing I'm looking forward to most is, how does Andy Reid, with all the time that he's had, what kind of game plan does he have? How does he try and slow down the pass rush? And this isn't, we talked about it locally quite a bit, that one of the things that Andy Reid is so good at, and you go back and watch the game that the Chiefs played earlier this year against the Niners and Nick Bosa, that they would leave him unblocked. They were running jet sweeps at him. They were doing all kinds of things that weren't necessarily just the traditional, chip him, put a tight end over there and help block. That Andy Reid would do anything he could, even to get those edge rushers to hesitate for a second or just think for a second, is all the time that they would need, just from a game planning, schematic standpoint, to try and slow down those guys to find any kind of success. If the Chiefs don't slow those guys down, they're not going to have success regardless. But I'm really fascinated to know what kind of answer Andy Reid has for the multiple of dudes up front that can get after it for the Eagles, and how they combat some of those things. That first quarter is going to be really fun to watch and see how many different formations they put out there, how many personnel packages, and gathering all that intel that they'll have for the rest of the game. But you're a defensive coordinator. Put your Jonathan Gannon hat on. What do you do to try and slow down Patrick Mahomes? And I won't insult you because I know you do this for a living. You're very good at this. You can't do any one thing consistently, and I know that. But from watching him, what would you try to do to at least make things more difficult on him.
Outside of a lot of prayer this week, and not stepping on any cracks and every good luck charm that you could think of over the course of the week of prep. Look, the big thing is understanding that he's going to make plays. And there was a play, I'm trying to remember who the receiver was, but it was against, I believe, Cincinnati in the title game where, the defense won the rep. And everything was covered up. And you guys, this is going to be commonplace for Kansas City fans at this point. But Patrick Mahomes rolls to his right. It looks like he's going to get forced out of bounds. A normal mortal would at that point, and he goes underhanded scoop throw to the sideline, and it becomes an explosive play. And you just see the defense just deflate on the sideline, and it's just like you have to be prepared for plays like that are going to happen. So you have to live for the next play. You have to live for the next drive. If he makes an explosive play for a touchdown, the play against Cincinnati where he steps up and he hits MVS over the middle, like. That's a big time play. He's a big time player who's going to make big time plays. But now it's all right. Next drive, what do we do to get off the field? What do we do to get a sack, to get a fumble, to get a stop, force an incompletion, get a negative play? You have to be able to try and get off the field as many times. That's silly, but you literally need to do that. Is understand he's going to score touchdowns. He's going to put points on the board. So everything you need to do needs to be geared towards trying to create as much chaos as you can. And sometimes that might require rolling the dice a little bit. But to me, it's mixing up your coverage structures, changing things up from drive to drive. You can't just say, okay, we're going to sit back and play man coverage. You can't just say every single snap, we're going to play quarters coverage every single snap. You have to mix and match. You're going to mix and match what your double team looks are going to look like against Travis Kelce. You can't just play, cover one double and then set 4 eyeballs on him every single play. That's not going to work either. So just finding different ways to mix and match and make Patrick Mahomes really read things out, get him off his first read, and allow that pass rush time to be able to get home. I do think that the rush can get home against this offensive line, but if the ball's coming out super fast, that's not going to help anybody. And so you got to get him off that first read, make him hesitate, make him second guess what he's seeing, and then allow that rush to be able to get home.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what it all looks like, what Andy Reid has dialed up. Now, before we let you go, is there an intriguing matchup, or what are you going to have your eyes on when the Chiefs offense is on the field? Outside of Patrick Mahomes, your eye starts wandering to the matchups and the things that you're interested in. What's the one storyline matchup that you're looking forward to watching on that side of the ball?
Yeah, I think the big thing, and this will be kind of the chess match element of this, and I would say that it's really on both sides because I think both offenses have the ability to go with multiple tight end sets and 12 and 13 personnel. And, what does the defense do to respond to that? I think when you look at the Eagles defense, they love to get into that, 5-man front, that 5-man structure as a defensive line where you have that nose tackle, that Linval Joseph, Jordan Davis inside, and everything kind of plays out from that. Hassan Reddick, that's why Reddick gets matched up on tight end so often, is because you've got that 5-man front and you've got a defensive tackle who's going to take the attention of that right tackle, right? And so if the Eagles the Chiefs come out in those 12 personnel, 13 personnel sets, will the Eagles respond with 5 defensive linemen? If that's the case, will Kansas City try to throw out of those looks? And that's something that I think will be a very interesting chess match early on in this football game. How are the Chiefs going to try and bait the Eagles into playing some of that base personnel defensively? And if they get the advantageous look, can they make them pay from a coverage angle? I'll be fascinated when they do that, where the Eagles say, okay, we're going to take James Bradbury, who has been outstanding this year, and he was second-team All-Pro for a reason. Maybe he's the matchup on Travis Kelce, right? I just think that there's so many wrinkles to this. It's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Especially when you have guys, you mentioned Kaiser White, some of these versatile, athletic players on that side that can do a lot of different things. It's still a lot of Chiefs fans. James Bradbury is one of the guys that we were all excited about in free agency, that looking at a corner, and instead they went and got a bunch of young dudes that they're going to be tested. We didn't spend a lot of time on the first one talking about the Chiefs DBs, but they've got 3 rookies and plus Brian Cook at safety. You got 3 rookie cornerbacks who are going to see a lot of snaps, and they're going to be out there. They've played a lot this year. They've got some experience, but it's going to be a big one because they're going to take a few shots down the field. And Steve Spagnuolo, nothing's not aggressive, so he's not afraid to put those guys on an island and put them in situations in which they got to go make a play. So, great stuff.
I was going to say, BJ, real quick, we know that how aggressive they like to be on the perimeter. Depending on what service you look at, the Chiefs lead the NFL in press coverage. A.J. Brown held 4 yards against press coverage than anybody in the NFL this year. And there's just like a bunch of those little storylines in this game on both sides that's going to make for a really interesting battle on Sunday night.
Yeah. Then facing physical receiver dudes all year, and there's not many built like A.J. Brown, so it's definitely going to be a fun one. Excited to see the young guys step up and see how they handle that opportunity. And big thing for Chiefs, and I think it's been the case all year, while putting a bow on that side of the ball for the Chiefs in our discussion, but if the safeties come up and tackle well, they're going to be in a good spot. The games that the Chiefs defense has really struggled coincide with games that Justin Reed and Juan Thornhill have struggled to come up and consistently tackle and consistently make plays, not get flagged. A lot of pass interference penalties called. I think they have the most pass interference penalties in the NFL called on them, and they've got a ref in the Super Bowl that I think has thrown more flags in that regard with Carl Sheffer. So see how that plays out. They get pretty handsy back there, so they take some deep shots. There's going to be contact down the field, and we'll see how much they let them play, but something that we've seen throughout the year. And need those guys to come up and tackle. Like I said, when they've played well, it's been the Chiefs defense has played well. Obviously, Chris Jones is doing his thing up front, but it's the guys on the back end being physical and tackling well, and they're going to need it against this group. So Fran Duffy, PhiladelphiaEagles.com, man. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you check him out, Chiefs fans. If you want more information on the Chiefs opponent this week, you can go find him on social media, consume his content, because there's few, if not any, who don't do it better or do it better, however you say that. But Fran, man, appreciate you. Thanks everybody for listening. Plenty more content coming your way from KC Sports Network, getting you ready for the game on Sunday. We'll see you next time.